Hello, welcome to the governance section of free open software. Let's start with some basic concepts. Now, the basic concepts come from commercial software. And commercial software always implies that there's a base cost and the code access is restricted because it's a commercial software, so it's closed software. On the other hand, free software implies that there's no base cost and you have unlimited code access. Now this provokes some publicity for free open software, with the key arguments being that it has improved security, improved stability, and reduced costs. This has awakened the interest of legislators and government officials from several countries, with the result of several administrations buying and adapting to free open software, and even promoting the usage of these free open softwares. Some country examples of these are France, Italy, Belgium, and Spain. Now let's move on to the commercial software versus free software arguments. The first one comes from the commercial software development. We have to know how it's developed. So first, you have to identify the customer needs, the development of the software itself, and the codification, construction, testing, and review of the code. From these three stages appears the development production cost. These are fixed costs, and I'm going to use a building construction analogy here. When you construct a building, pay for it once. You don't have to pay for the construction twice or three times. You only pay for it once. Now, there also are variable costs. For example, technical manual and instruction books, software physical support, for example CDs, DVDs, and USBs, or packaging and customer support. Following the building construction analogy, this will be like the maintenance cost, paying for electricity, paying for water, paying for the employees that clean the building. So these costs are variable, as the name says. It means that you don't know how much are you going to pay each time. Now, these two costs, fixed cost and variable cost, suppose a big implication for the companies. So they must adopt a strict pricing policies. This means that the price must cover the cost, as I said. Furthermore, in order to protect their products, intellectual properties policies are set because you want to protect your product from the market. Companies must make sure imitations and copies are out of the market and their products are safe and they are selling well. If these costs are not covered, companies can declare themselves as bankrupt. Now let's move on to different IP rights over software. Owners of software dispose of several mechanisms to protect their product. These mechanisms vary depending on the protected element. Their first option is to obtain patents over algorithm or over other creative aspects of the software design. The second option is to obtain protection over the software code itself via copyright. The third option is with a trade secret, also known as classified information in some jurisdictions. Now let's talk about the key features of software licenses. A common misconception is that free software means non-protected software. Free software could be distributed under a license and counts with copyright. Using the license, the software creators may exercise their legal rights to control their products. Commercial software is distributed under licenses that allows commercial transactions of the created IPs, while free open software licenses' main objective is to spread the software as much as possible. Now that we have talked about commercial software development, let's talk about free software development. It can be done by a particular developer. Developing a free open software means that there's no lucrative motivator, so why even bother? You're not going to get paid. Why invest your time in fixing or creating a free open software? In most cases, it comes from an altruistic need. You want to help the community, and developed free open software usually doesn't exist, or it does exist but it's not accessible to everyone, and it's a key software, or it exists but it can be improved. Now, in a business environment, why developing free open software? The main objective of a business is to gain money. So, why developing free open software? Believe it or not, it may enhance other product sales. It may enhance other product sales using the following sale models. Complementary software. This means that by promoting free open software, you can sell a commercial software because they are complementary to each other. The same can go to complementary hardware. You may sell your own hardware because you are promoting a free open software that works well with that hardware. And the final is complementary services. This means that if you promote free open software, you can sell services like support or learning courses or anything you can think about. Finally, in the argument of commercial software versus free open software, let's talk about advantages and disadvantages of free software. The advantages are clear. It's cheaper, you have limited usage, it's accessible to anyone, and it can be easily improved. Now, the disadvantages are the programmers are not paid, cost can outweigh the benefits, you don't have any guaranteed retribution for your investments, and incompatibilities between multiple versions can exist. Remember, we are developing several versions of the same software, so it's not rare to have some incompatibility problems. Now, let's take a look at the administration papers in all of this. Now, administrations of a country, they are basically a bunch of users. There are big sets of software users. So they have the same needs as any users. They look for the optimal software, for the most cost-benefit efficient software. But in the administration environment, sometimes decisions are taken based on politics, rather than advantages or disadvantages of any of the softwares. This leads to the administration's first argument: presumptive market failures. This means that the free open software is clearly the best thing for the market. Now, historically, software market works better without any public intervention. Several studies have shown that. But not only that, economically, software market works better without public intervention. Now, let's move on to the presumptive technical superiority of the free open software. Any kind of public intervention for the use of free open software is usually justified by the free open software technical superiority, in comparison to commercial software, of course. But is this public intervention based on a founded criteria? The answer of this question will be based on the pro-free open software main elements. The first one, which is security. There are three main arguments. Now let's talk about the first security argument. With more people analyzing a software code, it would be easier to spot any potential errors. And while this is somewhat true, there's no reason to say there are more people interested in fixing free open software errors rather than commercial software. Studies have shown there's no particular tendencies to fix either. People fix errors for free open software and people fix errors for commercial software. Now let's talk about the second argument. The code availability will allow experienced programmers to spot malicious malwares inside the program and defend against it. Yes, but remember that it's also true that the open factor also makes it extra vulnerable to any attacks. Now let's talk about the third argument. It's not a hacker's objective. Free open software is usually not a focus of hackers, and this fact grants it stability over commercial software. Well, the only reason this is true is because free open software is not as popular as some commercial software. But studies have shown if free open software becomes popular, it will be targeted by hackers. Now let's move to the cost arguments. Now, the cost argument says that the free open software saves cost for servers, while commercial software saves cost for PCs. And according to the Budget Committee of Germany, this is somewhat true. This statement is somewhat true. But they are not taking into account several factors like instruction, learning curve, adapting the infrastructure to free open software. So it's not a conclusive evidence of technical superiority. Now let's talk about provision independency. Now this statement is based on operating systems, particularly Microsoft versus Linux. And it says that having more than one operating system on the market makes said market more competitive. This means that the developers of those software will have to work harder in order to make their software the better of the market. First, a distinction must be made between PC and servers. If we are talking about servers, commercial softwares do not own the market. Thus, a public intervention is not justified. On the other hand, if we're talking about PCs, commercial software totally on the market. Thus, a public intervention is indeed justified. Now, about the innovation argument, open software is more accessible, thus is more innovative. So we must say that accessible doesn't mean innovative. In fact, if anything, accessible makes it easier to copy, so it works against innovative. So in conclusion, there's no clear reason for administrations to enforce any free open software aggressive policies. There's no universal formula to know which software to use.
Now we report an example of government conversation about the creation of a law project for the implementation of open software into the Peru state. Microsoft said that the exclusive implementation of open software into the state transgresses the equality against the law and produces a low private initiative. On the other hand, Peru said that all the government institutions have to implement software without discrimination condition, and all can produce software remaining into the state condition. This law project does not consider the danger for the security. On the other hand, private or open software implies errors or bugs that are less and easier to resolve into open software. So, private doesn't mean safer. They also said that open software is not free, but have low implementation cost, more or less 8%. Microsoft also said to apply open software on local and international industry. That implies more job places. On the other hand, they don't want to apply the open software on education structure, and they report the Mexico example. Peru said that the basic elements of the project are free access from citizens to the information, perennial public data, security for people and state. To guarantee the free access for the citizen at the information, we need codification of data that is not linked to just one provider. To guarantee the security of the state, we need the source code knowledge. This implies less programs with malware and more security for the people and the state. This law project doesn't put private law restriction, so all can develop free software. That implies more offer for private programmer, like the optimization of software version. The project law also doesn't forbid private production and trade of software. No restriction on software and provider choice. No term on software licensing.